Hello and welcome to Yerushalmi Berachos, Daf Samach Daled. Yesterday we talked about the text of Berachos and some rules about Berachos, and today we're actually going to talk about Hamichya, Berachos Me'en Shalosh. As we know, the structure of Me'en Shalosh is basically copying benching with its three kind of sections, and that's very important to understand today's Gemara. Very briefly, the Gemara says that Mahu lahaskar ba me'enam ora. What is the law regarding when you say the me'en shalosh? Do you mention the occasion? Now let's speak out. What would there be possibly to add? Shabbos, Yom Tif, right? Rosh Hashanah, Sukkot, etc. Rosh Chodesh, which we do. We know there's a text. We also know it's not ma'akev. But don't forget, what about Chanukah? What about Purim? Now halacha l'maisa, and again we know the Shulchan Aruch brings us down, and this is where we're starting with. But the understanding of what the halacha is, which is that we mention me'enam ora, which is Shabbos and Yom Tif and Rosh Chodesh. It's not ma'akev, but we do mention it, and also we don't mention Chanukah and Purim. So Amar Rabbi Abba Bar Zamina, he says Rabbi Zera have a maskir ba me'enam ora. He would say it. Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah hol v'chashlei Rabbi Zera, since he was concerned about it, tzrichanu mechash, we also have to be concerned about it, and that is what the Gemara says, and that's relevant for today. This is brought down halacha in many places. Let me give you a couple of marmakomos to deal with some of these other questions. So the first thing is that the Gemara in Shabbos, the Bavli in Shabbos stuff, Chaf Daled Amud Aleph has a whole sugya there, and there's also a couple of relevant tosses, and also the Bavli in Berachos Daf Mem Ches Amud Beis through an entire page also has a discussion about this exact thing, and I want to talk about some of the ha'aras that come out. We want to be lamdanim, so the first thing we have to define is what. So what is said is that the only things that are added me'enam ora are things that come from the uvenei in that area. So when you would have been saying uvenei Yerushalmi in real benching, before you would have said that, you would have said ritzei for Shabbos, so that has to be added, or you would have said yal v'yavo for Rosh Chodesh and Yom Tif. What isn't said in that section is the section of Purim, which would have been Al Nisim, or Chanukah, which would have been also Al Nisim, and then either Bimei Matisyo or Bimei Mordechai Esther. So what's clear is that, based on the Gemara that we have that I just mentioned, the Bavli and Berachos and Shabbos, what is clear is that seemingly only the what is only things that are added in the part before Uvenei are added, but not those. Now, there's also a big difference that the Gemara, the Bavlis that I mentioned, talk about specifically that why is it that we don't mention Chanukah and Purim in that section, and that is because it's Hodah. If you look at Rashi in Shabbos, he says Mefurish that of course in davening we mention Al Nisim because davening is all about Lahodus L'Halal. There's a whole discussion in Rashi, the Mefarshim there, Ayin Sham, the famous Gemara in Shabbos. That's where the sugya is about Chanukah, about whether Purim is Kol Shekain or not. Let's not get into that right now, but just the Lamdan wants to be aware of where that's located. But so in the Hamichya, where we're mentioning the Uvenei as a tefillah, and we're mentioning the Ritzei and the Yal V'yavo as a tefillah, so therefore that is going to be added in there. The Makar of the Shulchan Aruch that we don't add Chanukah and Purim is a Shalos Yeshuvas Maharam Rottenberg. He says before that this is halacha, and everybody brings it down halacha. Remember, that was the Rebbe of the Rush. It's brought down halacha, mamish throughout Shulchan Aruch, etc. Look at the Rush in Berachos, etc. The Rambam says the same thing. So the question is, what's going on here? So if you look at the Gemara in Shabbos Bavli that I mentioned earlier, it's very clear that what's going on here is that the only time that anything's added is when there's a carbon musaf that's brought. And we know that on Shabbos there's a musaf, on the Yom Tov there's a musaf, and Rosh Chodesh there's a musaf, but on, of course, Chanukah and Purim are not. So that seems to be one of the most contingent parts of this, whether it's added into the me'enam ora, and the Gemara says that itself. So if we think about that formula, that makes sense. Now I know some people have tried to say that V'yal Mizracha is a remes to Chanukah. That's very dochik to me. I'm not makabel that, and there's no remes in there. There's no where's the remes to Purim, etc. The bottom line is that most Mefarshim say that the pshat is that it's something that was added later to Darabanan, it's not to Raisa, so therefore it's not ma'akev. And again, we know that forgetting Al Nisim, according to most people, is not according to everyone on Chanukah, it's not ma'akev. On Purim, it's a shaila because there's a chi of suda or not. Yerushalmi lismoch either way. But the point is that it's definitely something that was added by Chazal later, right? We know the whole Yom Tovim are from Chazal, so it makes a lot of sense why it's not said in there, and it needs a better hezbollah as to why. But there's this elements that we're seeing here that help us better understand it. So just looking at some of these sources and being more aware, there's a famous pshat by the Grach as well, which basically says this exact idea that mixing together this idea that it's Darabanan, and also the fact that it's not. It's a hodah, it's an extra thank you. Anyway, I hope that was interesting for you and something that you can look into more if you want more information and understanding. Have a great day.